Lights, camera, action. Welcome to Couch Potato Critics. We are the Couch Potato Critics. I'm here with Las Vegas Cris. I'm Nolan Dalla. We're here to talk about movies and specifically the 2019 Oscars, the Academy Awards. I'm Nolan Dalla. I have loved movies my entire life. Got a lot of passions, but there's nothing better than sitting in the dark theater and enjoying a great film. Cris, talk about your background and why do you love movies?
It is an escape from everyday life, and everybody has to decompress and have time for themselves. Obviously, and I love popcorn. So between popcorn, I have to have popcorn and movies. I need my space. But I think where I really developed my love for movies, I remember getting a job in college at a video store, and he loved me. So he made me the manager, and I had the most hours. And when you're at a video store, and this was actually pre-Blockbuster, so what I really, really liked is having the responsibility, because everybody asks, well, what should I see? Well, you don't want to tell somebody to see a crap movie, and you've got to stand behind it. So, and you've got to be able to explain and articulate, well, you might like it for this reason, you might dislike it for that reason. So I started to care about movies and pay attention to movies more around that time. And then I realized, I could appreciate them more because of that responsibility. So I'm happy to be a part of this video. We're using the Fifth Street studios. Andrew's producing the show, and if we bore you,
Bieber, thank you very much for being here.
If we bore you, he's going to yell out from the side of the room. But the number one goal here is to go fast and loose. We don't want to bore people. We want to move from topic to topic, movie to movie. Ahead of time, I know some people are going to view in because I'm a gambler and I bet on the Oscars and stuff. I don't want to bait and switch. Right now, it's a little early to make the Oscar picks. I have not placed a Oscar bet yet. I want to see what happens the rest of the week. There's a lot of more information coming in, so you're not going to get a bait and switch. I will have strong opinions, but for betting information, not yet. So I'll have that maybe on my Twitter Friday, Saturday, Sunday for actual betting picks that I'm going to bet. So just full disclosure there.
Excellent. Cris, I know a lot of people here in Las Vegas. I don't think I know anyone in town who has seen more films probably over the last year than you do. Before we get into that, actually our picks and things we liked and didn't like about last year in movies, talk about the pass that you get. There's a pass where you go and you can see several movies a week for a bargain price. This is one of the greatest values there is around for movie lovers, right? Yeah,
well, another great thing about this video is little odds and ends that if we can help everybody understand.
Right.
The AMC Movie Stubs program is a no-brainer. For $20 a month, you can see 3 movies a week. I mean, how can you beat that?
Wow. So 3 times, that's 12 movies a week.
It includes IMAX, 3Ds, reserved seatings, daytime, nighttime, doesn't matter. It's the biggest no-brainer ever. So you just go there and see crap movies just for the hell of it. Worst case scenario. But they actually send you your stat data. So the AMC Stubs program started, I think, in June. And they said I was in the top 90th percentile of the 500,000 members that they have. And I think I was like at 69.
And you're not in the industry. That's what's remarkable.
I think I was at 69 movies as of like a month ago. Yeah. And obviously, I can't see every movie at AMC because there's movies that play elsewhere. So.
Yeah. Well, there's just so many experiences you can have with films and broadens your horizons and so forth, and it's nice to have you here, Cris. And my love is similar to yours. I don't think I see nearly as many films as you do, but before we get to the movies that are coming up here at the Oscars, what's the first movie that you remember ever seeing?
Well, that's really tough. From being a young kid, for whatever reason, what sticks in the back of my mind is this dumb movie called Bad Ronald.
I actually remember that movie.
It's about
it was a made-for-TV movie.
Yeah, it's about a kid that lives in the walls.
Yeah.
And is peeking. He's got peepholes.
He's a creep.
And for whatever reason, that just scared the bejesus out of me. And I think that was probably 1974. So I was 8.
It was
so
like
I really wasn't
ABC's
that young.
Tuesday Movie of the Week or something. They used to do that. Yeah.
But honestly, I don't remember the very first ones, but that had impact for some reason.
Yeah,
It's like,
here we are 40 years later.
Bad Ronald. It's like
Well,
scary stuff.
mine isn't nearly as scary, Chris. I remember, and show my age here, in 1968, I was in first grade, and I walked up to the Highland Movie Theater in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and I bought a ticket, well, my parents bought a ticket, to Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, starring Dick Van Dyke. And I've loved movies ever since.
I certainly do remember that. I mean, obviously, I saw lots of movies before 1974, but I just don't remember the first time. But I moved to South America, and what I do remember, like a year later, so 75, 76, and there you could stay, and it would cost you like a quarter or 50 cents to see a movie. And you'd have people sitting on the floor. Star Wars was coming out. And I remember seeing Star Wars like 3 or 4 times. And people were sitting on the floor and in front of the front row. And they had all the stickers that you collected and stuff like that. But I remember that was a huge thing. So somewhere between Bad Ronald and Star Wars. I don't know.
All right, we disagree. Chris and I are disagreeing, as you'll see as the show goes on movies and what we like. And we're going to get into that in a minute. Let's talk about last year in film, which is essentially 2018 was when you look at the 2019 Oscars, what they're referring to are the films released the previous year, which is 2018. Question: was 2018 a good or bad year in cinema? Las Vegas, Chris, what do you say?
I thought it was a better year than I concluded looking at the movie list this year. I looked at the Metacritic's list, and there was over 600 movies, and I was surprised that I had a really hard time coming up with like a top 10 list. Mm-hmm. The previous year, there were no great movies either. Shape of Water won last year, but the average movie was pretty good. There was a lot of decent movies. But this year, I don't think there are a lot of 6s
movies. Or 7s.
Yeah, well, no, 7s and
10s.
8s. I mean, you don't have any movies that you're going to remember forever from last year, but you can pick out a top 10 list easy for last year. And this year's it's tough to come up with 10 great movies that you would recommend.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I think your analysis is spot on. And I did some research here, and what I was looking for when you say great movie year, you look back to like 19. I'll just pull something. Up here, like 1968, you have The Graduate and I think A Lion in Winter that year. Oliver comes out. Maybe Planet of the Apes is in there. All these movies that 50 years later we still remember them. And I wonder, and I look at this list, what movie on this list are they going to be talking about 50 years from now? And I'll go on back, and again, I just randomly did this. I looked at 10 years ago. This is 10 years ago from 2009. Here were the Best Picture nominees that year. 2009 Oscar nominees for Best Picture: Shakespeare in Love, Elizabeth, Life is Beautiful, Saving Private Ryan, and The Thin Red Line. By the way, I think we remember probably at least 4 out of 5 of those. 2 of those are probably epic films.
All 5 of those are better than any movie this year.
Exactly. And so which of these movies this year will be the Saving Private Ryan of this field? I don't see it. I don't think you do either.
No. Honestly, for you're not going to have anything that's the Star is Born in Bohemian Rhapsody will be memorable, not because they were great movies, but just because they were they drew a lot of attention.
Mm-hmm. Right. Well, let's move on to some of the things that we liked and didn't like about 2018 in cinema. Again, this is a preface to our actual Oscar picks. When we talk about the Oscars, we're going to be talking about the films that we think will win, the films we think should win, and some films that were overlooked, some films that were overrated. And Chris is going to give us his Razzies. It's basically the worst films or the films that he didn't like. I'm going to give you kind of my own list of films that, this is the truth, I actually walked out on. I stormed out of, I think, 5 or 6 movies this year. I'm going to tell you what those 5 or 6 movies were, and you may be shocked at some of those titles. All right, so let's rant and rave here now about
Go for it.
some of the things that happened last year. I'm just going to throw this out at you. Black Panther, a game changer maybe. I think that I saw the figures. It made $700 million inside the United States.
It's at 1.5 million now.
Worldwide. It's
1.5 billion.
Billion,
Sorry.
right.
Yep.
Astounding success. Is this a game changer for Hollywood, and if so, in what way?
Well, you know what? I really wasn't. I'm not a fan of those movies at all.
What do you mean by those
superhero movies,
Right.
special effects? If you're not into those types of movies, this is the one movie that you can go in my opinion, and enjoy. It has enough reality-based. The special effects do not overtake the movie and annoy you for an hour. The dialogue was okay. It was very original. It's really hard to criticize that movie. It's nominated in so many categories: the music, the costumes, everything. It's a very, very good movie. It may very well be the best movie that you could have for superheroes. I really liked it. I mean, and it's not my cup of tea at all, that genre.
It does belong on the list of the top 5 or 6.
I think it's a well done movie. Did you walk out of it?
That's number 1. All right, that's
Did you?
1-0 less. I'm going to tease the audience.
Okay.
That's 1-0. Chris is up on me 1-0, but the night is young. Let's continue on. Movie franchising. We've seen the Star Wars films. I enjoyed the first Star Wars. I'm not a big fan of the franchise of Star Wars. Boy, doesn't that franchise make some money. Now I think Disney has bought this entire thing. It is now going to start cookie cuttering, McDonaldizing this entire franchise of Star Wars. Boy, that can't be a good thing for Star Wars fans, can it?
Well, they were screwed. The net take for them was down 20 or 23%, I noticed, because they didn't release a Star Wars movie. They are heavily dependent on the Star Wars franchise, and we know that they've been pretty mediocre lately. So you compound mediocrity and skipping a year. What's going to happen with them?
Well, I mean, how many times can you kill Han Solo or whatever the characters? Darth Vader's been exposed now. We saw that in the last movie. So I mean, where's the suspense? I don't know what else.
I'm giving up on that franchise, quite frankly.
Talk about balloting. We're just going to lead into our next point here in a moment about voting, which Chris has some very strong opinions on. I'm going to talk about balloting, and I'm going to go straight to a category. We're not going to discuss the category quite yet, but more the procedure of Oscars voting and so forth. We have 2 actresses, very, very good actresses in the supporting actress category, who are nominated for the same film, which is The Favorite. It's an English comedy period piece. I think I forgot Queen Victoria or something in the 19th century, and it's a comedy. It's kind of a farce and so forth. But Emma Stone is nominated for Best Supporting Actress, as is Rachel Weisz. So don't these two, when you have 2 persons from the same film, don't they often cancel each other out? And I'll come up with the most famous example of that is Sidney Poitier. Talk about somebody who had an amazing year in film, and if you look at what Sidney Poitier did in 1967, yeah.
Oh.
Guess who's coming to dinner? He's nominated for that. In the Heat of the Night, he's nominated for that, and then he also makes To Sir with Love, 3 astounding films. He's nominated twice for supporting actor, and of course it counts. Whoever votes in one, votes in there. It cancels out, and I forgot who ended up. I think George. I think. Cool Hand Luke, George Kennedy won, actually, which is also a very good performance. But talk about let's lead into the voting, the procedures here for they cancel each other out, and it's just a mishmash of a mess, isn't it?
Well, what I would like to touch on first is I think it's really important for people to know, and I'm addressing the reason why I have not placed any bets, and it's kind of difficult to place bets. I've had a lot of success picking nice underdogs over the last, 5 to 10 years. And I skip years. I don't even place a bet. 2 years ago, I placed nothing. Last year did very well. 3 years ago did very well. It's okay to sit out. But here's the problem. Remember Oscar So White?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I hate to get, I don't mean this to be political, but that was the year that there were so few blacks nominated that it became Oscars So White. My personal opinion that year, honest to God, I did not see a problem. I did not see anybody that was completely excluded that shouldn't have been excluded, but they made a huge deal about it and it got overblown. That's 3 years ago. What's happened over 3 years? You have 2,000 new voters. Think about that. There was 5,000 voters 3 years ago. Now you're up to, a little bit over 5,000. Now you're up to 8,000 voters. Back 3 years ago, 3% of the voting academy were of people of color.
3%?
3%. Okay? Now you're up to 1,200 people. In a matter of 3 years, they've changed it to 1,200 people. So you're talking about 15%. You've gone from, you've multiplied by fivefold. So how are we supposed to handicap that if you're going to actually put money on the line? You've added a global presence. You've added millennials. They made a strong push for millennials, disproportional women, and they're trying to bridge the whole gap and get everywhere across the board. So that changes the whole complexion of the voting.
Excuse me for a second, Chris. What do you mean disproportional women? I don't understand what you meant.
Well, they've added disproportionately people of color, foreign people.
Yeah. I'm sorry, but what do you mean by disproportionate in the sense of?
Because they 3 years ago, like I said, people of color, 3%. Now they're 15%.
Right.
So the 2,000 people that they've added have been disproportional to try to level things out.
I understand that, but my question is, I'm sorry, but this is fascinating. Probably a lot of the listeners and viewers are not up to date on this either, and I'm certainly not. I mean, if you talk about actors and actresses in Hollywood, I would think about half of the working actors or actresses are female, and certainly not true with directors or producers or people in power. People in color and certainly females are underrepresented, and I understand where you're going with that. But if you just take Hollywood overall, aren't there roughly half of the people that are working in movies, aren't they women?
I'm not so sure about that, and then how do you like this? They are actually adding people from the television industry, and there are still many Oscar winners that do not have voting privileges. So
Oscar winners?
There are Oscar winners that do not have voting privileges, and they're adding people from the TV industry. So I'm sitting here looking at this and going, well, wait a minute. Why am I going to sit there and put serious money on this when there has been such serious changes over the industry voting over the last few years? Maybe we need to sit back and watch a little bit. I mean, it's the Golden Globes thing, too. A lot of people don't realize there's only like 93 or 97 people voting for the Golden Globes. So it's a huge difference, but it's something you have to be aware of. We may see the standard MO this year, or we may see some really wacky results this year.
Excellent analysis. I was not aware of all that. Let me move on to something else before we again get into some of the Oscars. I'm going to make a point here, and I don't think you're going to shoot me down, but knowing you might. I think, ladies and gentlemen, there should be a penalty box. A penalty box, just like in hockey. Anyone who participated in any way, on screen or off, in 50 Shades Freed, which is this horrendously bad franchise. I think they've made 2 or 3 movies now. It's essentially a light S&M type film franchise. It always comes out on Valentine's Day. It's always these movies always are just completely destroyed by the critics.
You didn't pay for that, did you?
No, I didn't. Oh, of course not. No, but I heard about it. And by the way, here's what I did. I have to turn off the camera right when I'm saying this. Not really, Andrew. This is one of these kind of movies where if I go in, I'll go in 15 minutes early, and I've got to watch this horror for 10 minutes just to see, is it really as bad as I heard? So yeah, I kind of like saw 10 minutes of it. But my point is this: when someone is affiliated with just a really bomb of a picture, shouldn't that hurt their career? And it doesn't seem to, by the way, if you look at some of the films that are bombing this year.
These people are able to survive these bad movies. How many? Well, Cameron Diaz is kind of disappearing.
Yeah, true.
Jim Carrey's disappearing. There are people disappearing after bad movies.
Yeah, well,
it's
so competitive now too.
It's competitive, and when you've got all the television options also, which affect it also.
Well, so anyway, so as far as the voting goes, Chris, I think you've really addressed some interesting things about how that's going to change things, and we might as well be a little controversial here. I hope you won't mind me bringing this up, but let's be quite honest. Hollywood was too white, or too male, certainly in the director and producer fields. There's no question that Hollywood and most of society needed to diversify. And whenever we discuss how this might impact voting or whatever, it doesn't mean we're making any moral or ethical judgments about that. As a handicapper, the only color that matters is green, right? So, but these are realities here. Do you now the question is, do you think that Latino voters, people that work in the cinema that are Latino or Native American, let's say, or Black or any other, like Asian, do you think that they're going to be predisposed to like or favor or vote within their own ethnicity, if that's the right phrase?
I don't know for sure.
Generally speaking,
like the show says, we're couch potatoes. We don't write columns. We're fans. We don't really know. You would think though that people's loyalty is to, kind of favor and reward people that they see bonds with. So there has to be some sort of influence along those ways. So
right, I'll bring up one film that's a good example of exactly what we're talking about. I did not like this film, Crazy Rich Asians. If you're familiar with that, I think you saw that. Everyone seemed to love that but me. But let me say one thing about the film. It was pretty much an all-Asian cast, and this is a market that you wouldn't think in the United States. Certainly there's been, how many Asian movies can you name unless they were Bruce Lee or Jackie Chan or something like that? Yeah, I mean, there are very few, though. There are very few, considering the size of the population of this country that's Asian. Are we going to start seeing more films like that are what I call ethnocentric?
Absolutely. Crazy Rich Asians 2 is already on its way out in development. And I agree with you. I really had fun with that movie, by the way. It's not a high-quality movie, so the dialogue was simplistic, and lots of the movie was corny. But it was just a movie you just have fun with.
Yeah, good way of putting it.
It didn't deserve any awards or anything like that, but it's nice to see, like you said, different groups of people brought into the movie place and see something different. I'd rather see a movie like that than another shoot 'em up, Bruce Willis movie.
Yeah,
I mean,
sure.
he had I think he had 2 movies that were just absolute flops.
He had 2
this year.
movies this year,
Yeah,
Bruce Willis?
Yeah, he had the Death Wish and something else.
Well, Death Wish is appropriately named.
Yeah,
huh?
it was Dead on Arrival.
Well, speaking of Dead on Arrival, before we go into the Oscars, the actual picks and who should win versus who will win, the Oscar host controversy. Wow. What an interesting thing that we didn't really, I don't think anybody foresaw that we wouldn't have a host this year. And when we were coming on the air here before we came live, you told me that this is not the first year that there's been no host. I didn't know that. What can you give us the background?
Yeah, everybody
what are your feelings
should
about that?
Everybody should Google 1989. That was the last time they didn't have a host. So that was the year it opened with Snow White, and then Rob Lowe had all these duets with Snow White.
Really?
And it was absolutely panned.
That sounds like a train wreck.
And it was a train wreck, and there was lots and lots of anger because Snow White looked idiotic and Rob Lowe looked idiotic, and it wasted, I think, like 14 minutes or 12 or 14 minutes of time.
Wow. And
it was just ridiculous.
I'm going to have to go back on YouTube and look that up.
I mean, we've all seen Rob Lowe sing, so you know him. The first and only time.
So tell the viewers about what happened with Kevin Hart this year and why we don't have a I mean, all this should be the most coveted job in entertainment. It was when Johnny Carson did it, Billy Crystal did it for many years. Many years ago, it was Bob Hope who was Mr. Comedy. Now they can't find a host.
Yeah, well, there's too much pressure on it. Everybody's a critic, and you get guys like Ricky Gervais and other people that just cause too much conflict, or other people are too political. But they actually went to The Rock, and Rock was involved in that initially. But he's filming, I think, Jumanji 2 and something else, and. Then the political correctness thing with Kevin Hart, where they searched his Twitter from 2011 or 2010. They didn't like a few things, and they said, "Oh, you have to apologize." And he said, "Well, you know what? No, I don't."
A comedian doing something that maybe crossed the line. How dare he?
I have a great respect for him after that, saying "screw you." Because it was a big gig, and he just said, "No, I'm sick of this. I'm a comedian. I should live on the edge. It's not like I'm saying I hate these people. I'm just making jokes. That's what a comedian is about." So
good for him, and well said for sure. Ready to talk about the Oscars?
Well, you've got the outline. I have no idea.
Got it. All right.
I've got no idea where we're going.
You're kind of wound up there. I want to make sure we don't go off the path here. So here we go. Our Oscar picks. So we're going to go down. There's a lot of categories that we won't cover. We're not going to talk about sound editing, okay? I know that 300 million people are tuning in to watch the speech from the guy from Hungary talk about winning the best sound editing category, but we're going to try to stick with the the big 8. Let's start off just like with the Oscars. They usually go best supporting actor and actress. When I say actress, I know they mean actor, female actor in a supporting role or what have you. So let's just start out right here. Best supporting actor. Here they are: Mahershala Ali in Green Book, Adam Driver in Black Klansman, KKK Klansman, Sam Elliott in A Star Is Born, Richard E. Grant, Can You Ever Forgive Me, and Sam Rockwell, who won last year, or a couple of years ago, I forgot, but for Vice. Now, Chris, Las Vegas Chris, you're going to give us who you think will win, who you think should win, and maybe any gambling tips you have on this category.
I think Ali is going to win for Green Book, but this is one of the reasons why if you're getting in betting pools with families, or you're watching with your family, and you want to just everybody guesses, oh, I think this person's going to win, that person's going to win. Right now, I think it's Ali. I just worry because he's a much more talented actor than he was asked to be in that movie. So he didn't have a hell of a lot of difficulty. Grant was excellent in his movie, and I'm glad to see he's kind of passed up Elliott, because Elliott was an early prediction because he's the sentimental choice, so to speak, and he really did a good job in Star Is Born. But I'm going to go with Ali. I think he should win and will win.
Yeah, I agree with you that.
And then for betting purposes. He's a huge favorite. He's 17-1 at the lowest odds I saw today, up to 25-1. So he's actually.
I'm sorry. You mean 1 to 7? No, you'd have to put up.
Yes, you have to bet $1,700 to win $100. So if you were to bet Grant, you could get 10-1 on him, and I don't see a reason to do that today. So.
Maybe 20-1 though, if you could find something like that.
No, not necessarily.
And you're saying. Mahershala Ali is a lock, it sounds like.
No, not a lock. He's
well, is there anybody
strong.
else that could win this category? You said Sam Elliott, maybe?
Grant could win, and Elliott could win, but I wouldn't put any money on it.
Yeah, I certainly agree with you again that Ali will win this award. I think Grant is, it's a really good role. I was not real high on the movie that he was in. Unless a McCarthy film, but I thought he was marvelous in that film. I hated Sam Elliott's role, despised it. I thought he was horrific in that film. It wasn't his fault. Talk about somebody miscast in A Star Is Born. He's supposed to be the brother, the older brother of Bradley Cooper, who I think is around 35, 40 in this film. Sam Elliott, I think in real life, is 74 or low 70s.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I mean, that's ridiculous. This man is his brother, and he basically was just cursing and going, mad, and I realized that he was playing a brother in a dysfunctional family. I never bought it. I like Sam Elliott. I think he's a marvelous character actor. Always seems to play himself. By the way, I don't want to sit here. Well, I'm going to bash Sam Elliott. I just thought that was completely a ridiculous nomination. I liked A Star Is Born. Hated that role. I thought he was horrific. He was completely miscast. Had no business whatsoever being nominated.
I agree with you. He has no range, and it's a sentimental pick at
Right.
best.
Sentimental, yeah, for certainly a career that's very well defined. Moving on to Best Supporting Actress. Let's see if we can ruffle some feathers on this one. Best Supporting Actress, Amy Adams in Vice. Marina de Tavira, I hope that said that right. That's the young girl in Roma who was so good. Regina King in If Beale Street Could Talk. Emma Stone in The Favorite, and Rachel Weisz in The Favorite. So you have two in The Favorite. We talked about that earlier. Who will win, who should win, and any gambling.
Yeah, you go.
I go first. All right.
Yeah, we're going to alternate.
Well, I think that, it's Regina King is probably the favorite here for If Beale Street Could Talk. I did see the film, somewhat of a depressing film, but she completely holds this movie together. Very sympathetic character. I quite frankly was not familiar with this actress. I think for a lot of reasons, some of them racial here. This is the black actress in this category. Viola Davis and some others have won this. Historically, this has gone to I don't want to say a minority, but that does seem to be in play if you're wagering on this. Rachel Weisz for The Favorite, I think, was probably the one that I might lean toward, but I think either of those two are very good. Amy Adams, by the way, 6 times she's been nominated for
Goose Egg,
and no wins. And Amy Adams is so good in everything she does. She plays Lynn Cheney, the wife of Dick Cheney in Vice. I thought she was so good in this. I really like to see my own personal favorite, Amy Adams win, but I don't think she will.
Well, she's been so much better in so many other roles, though. This is, while she was fine in Vice, probably every other time she's been nominated, she was better in those movies.
Yeah.
Not necessarily her fault. It's script, it's content. She did as well as she could have in the role. I'm with you. Regina King is going to win, I think. Betting purposes, you're looking at minus 250, minus 290, somewhere in that range. If you think Amy Adams is going to pull off the miracle, you can get 3-1 in your favor. I do not see any way I'm going to be betting that category, even if Amy Adams even goes higher.
Just too close to call?
I think King's going to win the category. She's not a lock, but I just have no confidence in anybody else winning that category.
Moving on to Best Foreign Language Film. This is probably I think we're going to have a consensus on this. This is a 2-horse race, but I'll still give all of the 5 films that are nominated for Best Foreign Language Film. Capernaum from Lebanon, which I did not see. Cold War from Poland. I know, Chris, you just recently saw that, and so did I. Never Look Away from Germany. I watched a little bit of that actually online. Roma from Mexico. We're going to talk a lot about Roma here during the show later on. And Shoplifters from Japan, which I got to admit I'm not familiar with. Cold War and Roma, it looks like a 2-horse race. You agree?
No, it's a 1-horse race. But Roma is 50-1 favorite. So
wow.
At one site, it's a huge favorite. In my personal opinion, if you could combine those two directors, you'd have the perfect director.
Paul Makowski.
Yeah, right, whatever the Roma guy screwed up,
right,
the Cold War guy did great, and vice versa. There's a lot of great things about Cold War.
Talk about that a little bit more.
Cold War, I really liked that movie.
This is a romance that takes place in Eastern Europe before the fall of communism. In it's a dark movie. They're both black and white.
Oh yeah, it's not a happy movie.
No.
But and nobody wants to spend a lot of time on foreign movies. But this movie is so good because it doesn't treat you like an idiot. It segues time and it doesn't dummy it down for you and explain to you, oh well, time has passed by. And some of the dialogue is just absolutely brilliant. You know, I remember one line, the woman is talking about an issue she had with her father, and I don't remember the exact words, but she says, well, he mistook me for his wife. So, I mean, what a power. And the way she said it was just so powerful. The dialogue was really good and succinct, and But Roma's going to win this.
Yeah, I think you're certainly right on this. It's interesting, this foreign language film category. It's always spoken to my soul, and I think to your soul as well, because we both are married to wives who were born in foreign countries, and my world has been broadened by my wife introducing me to films from not only her country, but other parts of Europe and so forth, and I learned so much more, and I have found that, that there's a... When you read subtitles, obviously I don't speak Polish. I think actually if you get Cold War, you've got Italian and Polish and German and English. It's several languages there, whereas Roma's almost entirely in Spanish, as I recall. But this is not a hindrance in my view. Reading and essentially following. I know some people don't want to read the subtitles. I would certainly rather read subtitles than remember the dubbing. They used to have dubbing.
The dubbing's worse.
Right.
But quickly, when my wife moved here, her English sucked, so I started watching TV with subtitles, and now I don't watch TV without subtitles. I love the subtitles.
Right.
Subtitles don't bother me anymore because you pick up so many things that you had missed. But another thing is there have been 6 foreign films named nominated in Best Foreign Film and Best Picture.
Mm-hmm.
And there hasn't been one that has won Best Picture. They usually give one or the other.
Right.
So it's going to be really interesting to see if
it could win. That would be the first time.
They're thinking has a pretty good shot of it.
Wow. Very good. Well, we're going to get to Best Picture on the other end of this in a moment. Before we take a break, let's talk about Best Song. This should be, I think it's a lock for the song I'll bring up here in a moment.
Mary Poppins.
Not Mary Poppins. Anyway, Best Song. And by the way, this is a category that used to be so good. Used to have all the great stars coming on and singing hit songs, and really there's only one, maybe 2 hit songs that out of this year's crop, and I'm disappointed that this used to be such a fun category. I don't think it's nearly as much fun anymore. And by the way, where's Randy Newman? This is the first time ever I think Randy Newman was not nominated for one of the Pixar type animated films. I think he's done 19 nominations or something in this category. Anyway, no Randy Newman. The nominees in Best Song are I'll Fight, The Place Where Things Go, that's the Mary Poppins film. Shallow, of course, which is The Star Is Born, Lady Gaga and Bradley Cooper. And a film that we haven't discussed yet, we will shortly, The Ballad of Buster Scruggs, which is the Coen brothers film that was not seen widely, but the film is called When a Cowboy Trades His Spurs for Wings. Is there any way Shallow doesn't win this award?
Well, you as you're talking about people that are having bad breaks, I can't remember her first name, Warren, who did the RBG song. This is going to be her 12th loss. So,
Wow.
No, Shallow wins. It's easy.
Yeah. By the way, I'm curious about one thing before we take our break. Bohemian Rhapsody is a film that got a lot of acclaim this year. Certainly, the lead actor. Why weren't any of the Queen's songs? Were they just not eligible for?
Well, I think it's originals.
Well, I don't know. Is that the?
Yeah, it's all original songs.
So it has to be. They had to be movies that came out that were written essentially for films last year.
Yeah, well, I'm just a couch potato, but my understanding is it has to be original.
Very good. Okay,
Yeah.
so I didn't know
I could be
that,
wrong,
so-
though. So.
No, it sounds like you're right about that. So anyway, well, let's take a break here. We'll come right back and get to the last 4, and we've got a lot more to go here on Couch Potato Critics with Las Vegas Critics. I'm Nolan Dalla. We are back on Couch Potato Critics. This is Las Vegas Chris, and I'm Nolan Dalla. We're talking about the 2019 Academy Awards. Let's continue, shall we, Chris? Best Actor category this year. Christian Bale in Vice. Bradley Cooper in A Star Is Born. William Dafoe, wow, in At Eternity's Gate. Rami Malek in Bohemian Rhapsody, and Viggo Mortensen in Green Book. Chris, who will win, who should win, and any gambling tips you have?
Well, we're going to speed up this second segment, but boy, William Dafoe was excellent in Florida Project last year. If you haven't seen it, go see that movie. Excellent movie, one of the top 2 movies that I liked for last year, along with Maudie. Those are my 2 favorite movies last year, and neither one of them nominated. But I feel bad for Bradley Cooper. Even though I'm not a huge Star Is Born fan, I thought he did a really good job. He's got no shot. It's a 2-horse race between Bale and Malek, and this is really interesting. I have my eyes on betting on this, but there's more information that needs to be done. Malek was Bale was a stone cold lock, and then I don't know what happened. Maybe it was his Golden Globe speech, which annoyed the hell out of a lot of people, and just the fact that people don't like him in general. But now all of a sudden, Malek is a very heavy favorite, he is the lowest 5-1 favorite now. And if you would have had the odds 3 weeks ago, Bale would have been 5-1.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why you gotta kind of bide your time on betting these things and see what happens and see what the word is. Oscar voting isn't even over.
All right, real quick question: what could change in the next? We're filming this about a week before the Oscars. What can change in the next 6 days that would change your opinion?
Well, there's publications and articles that come out with people's opinions that you can pay attention to. There's publications I've read in the past that separate it and say, well, the director they do anonymous what they did,
right.
what their picks were. So they say, well, the anonymous director picked this, the anonymous actor picked this, and the anonymous producer picked this, and maybe you get a different slant on what's really going on, and it's you just don't. I don't know how to explain it. You would think that you would know right now what would happen,
mm-hmm.
but every single year I bet these Oscars, I'm coming up with these picks at the very last minute.
Yeah.
When you would think that your best value would be right away.
Yeah.
But you look back at Shape of Water last year. I hated that movie. I thought it was garbage. But when it got up to 4-1. I told my partner, we've got to bet some pretty good money on this. It's a 50-50 shot that the Shape of Water wins, but we're getting 4-1.
Yeah.
And 3 years ago, Spotlight, same thing. But Spotlight, that was when I walked out of that movie, I knew it was going to win. But how the hell that movie became a 4-1 underdog, I don't know.
Yeah.
And both of those happened very, very late. So that's why you got to sit on this. But my personal pick is Bale.
Mm-hmm.
It's very close. I don't know who's going to win. They're both very, very close. They both did great jobs. So I just don't know.
Yeah, really good. A lot of good content in there. One of the most interesting things you said was that you could have a different opinion, completely disagree, but also decide to bet money on that. It's interesting how you would analyze a situation and have a markedly different opinion of the outcome.
Well, it's value. When you're betting value.
Right.
So we would have made a ton of money last year if I liked the movie Shape of Water. I hated the movie, but I said it is great value. I have to bet it.
Sure. Good point. I think Christian Bale should win this. I don't know if he will for the reasons that you have explained. However, I will say there is a precedent for actors who, first of all, play historical figures. We're coming off Gary Oldman playing Churchill, a very similar kind of with the makeup, but not just the makeup, but got into the character. And Christian Bale, I think with Daniel Day-Lewis out of the picture now, Lily out of the picture, he's retired, he says, the world's best actor, in my view, is Christian Bale. I don't think there's any question about this, with the diversity of his roles. And then he puts on 45 pounds to play this role. 45 pounds. This is it 70?
I think it was 70.
I've read different numbers.
Yeah.
But this is a man that's not particularly a big man to put on that kind of weight, adding, say, 20% of your body weight. This is like Robert De Niro playing Raging Bull, where he wins the Oscar. I mean, when you're changing your health and body shape to play a role, and then doing a role that everyone knows, Dick Cheney, everyone knows that person, and he nails it. And the way he walks, the way he talks, the enunciation, everything about him I thought clicked. By the way, Rami Malek, talk about playing a tough role. Dick Cheney is one thing, but to play Freddie Mercury, that's quite another. He certainly was marvelous.
Yeah, but here's the thing: is Cheney was dead nuts. You think you're watching Dick Cheney.
Yeah.
Malek, you're looking at the teeth, and he did not quite have you're not sitting there convinced you're looking at Freddie Mercury during that movie.
Oh, I completely agree with you.
So that's why it's really hard.
Great point.
I'm going to be looking at Christian Bale on this.
Yeah.
But I've had a fair amount of people say Malik's a lock now for some reason, and adding all these millennials and new people, you just don't know.
You never know. And the real shame, as you say, William Dafoe probably not having a shot in this, because a movie that almost no one saw. Really a good category. 5 very strong performances here. Let's go to Best Actress now. I'm going to butcher her name because she's the girl that played in Roma. It's Yalitza Aparicio, I believe that's correct. Glenn Close for The Wife. Olivia Colman for The Favorite. Lady Gaga on A Star Is Born. And Melissa McCarthy playing quite a different role in Can You Ever Forgive Me? What's your pick here?
What's yours?
Well, mine will be, I think Glenn Close is the odds-on favorite. This is a movie that a lot of people didn't see, but Glenn Close is an actress that's, again, she's been nominated, I think, 6 or 7 times, has never won, just a stellar career in Hollywood. I think somebody that has a lot of respect from the Academy. Again, the wild card, as you keep bringing up, is the voting contingency has changed. Will they remember or recall Glenn Close's performances? It reminds me a lot of Al Pacino winning for when he finally won. He finally won after about 7 or 8 really marvelous performances, and he wins for a movie that he probably wasn't his best film by any means, Scent of a Woman, although he was very good. I think we could see something here with Glenn Close, the same thing. Lady Gaga, by the way, what a debut just to be nominated. I'm a little bit worried that you occasionally see a Cher coming out of the if you remember Cher playing in Moonstruck.
Yeah.
I mean, you see these kind of things happen where there's just this wave, and Lady Gaga is such a powerful global force that I think she's got a shot to win this. I wonder if there's any value, maybe, even though I love Glenn Close here, to maybe betting on Lady Gaga. What do you think?
I think Glenn Close wins this and deserves it. My number 2 would be Coleman. I love Coleman. She's in Peaky Blinders. If you're into TV binge watching and you haven't seen Peaky Blinders, that's a great show. You got to watch that with subtitles, though, even though it's in English. It's so hard to understand. But you told me you thought Gaga was going to be nominated Best Actress when you saw A Star Is Born, and I laughed at you. I go, what? I think this is the opposite of the men. This is a really, really weak year for women. And Gaga did a fine job. I'm not going to say she did a poor job, but Close did a really, really good job. She was much better, much more talent. She was solid through the whole movie. I don't know if you saw The Wife, but she was very good.
Mm-hmm. Very good.
She wins it and deserves it.
Good. Well said. Best Director, Alfonso Cuarón for Roma, Yorgos Lanthimos for The Favorite, Spike Lee for Black KKK Klansman, Adam McKay for Vice, and Paul Pawlikowski for Cold War. This seems like a lock for Alfonso Cuarón, yes?
It does, and I do want to just touch base. I didn't mention all the betting on the actress, but Close is like 6 to 7 to 1 favorite, which is probably where she belongs. Coleman has moved up to 2nd place, above Gaga. They were 1 and 2, but I agree with the Coleman move. Coleman actually, might have some value.
Some value, very good.
Yeah,
Best
the director's it's going to Roma.
Okay, it just seems like a slam dunk. By the way, any chance Spike Lee sneaks in here for a lot of different reasons? A resume that's been around. He gets nominated for Black KKK Klansman. That's probably going to be shut out on just about every other category.
No, it's going to get some. It's going to get 1 or 2.
All right.
Yeah.
But does he have any shot?
Yeah, but if you think so, you can get 7-8 to 1. So I don't think so. I think director for sure goes to Roma. It's just the effort is just much greater there.
All right, we're going to spin off into the Best Picture, and this will be a continuation, probably of Best Director. Although it's strange if you look at the last several years, Best Director, which always precedes Best Picture, often you'll see ballots split here. You don't see director. you do have occasionally the Titanic factor, and where there's a sweep across the board, the Schindler's List, the movies that are epic film movies that won 10 or 12. This is not going to be one of those years, most likely. So you could see the split here. Although we'll see here, and we'll hear what Cris thinks. The 5 nominated Best Pictures this year.
I think there's more than 5.
Oh, you're right. There are more than 5. Oh, there's quite a bit more. I'm sorry. You know what? You're right. So, excuse me. I was looking on the wrong side of the page. Anyway, I'll just kind of.
You've only seen 5 of them.
I know. I think you're right. I think I saw less of them. Anyway, let's roll down fast. Black Panther, Black KK Klansman, Bohemian Rhapsody, The Favorite, Roma, Green Book, A Star Is Born, and Vice. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 films. You're right. Black Panther, Black Klansman, Bohemian Rhapsody, The Favorite, Roma, Green Book, A Star Is Born,
What's
Vice.
your pick?
My own pick would probably be Roma because of the artistry and everything that was encapsulated in that effort from Alphonse Cuarón. I love this director. He hasn't made a film since 2013. He put essentially the best years of his career to do this. Really a pet project. He's a Mexican director, grows up, I think, in this section of Mexico City, and makes not a postcard or a love poem to his childhood by any means, but this is something that reflects something very personal. Roma is what every movie aspires to be and usually falls short of. Not that Roma doesn't have some flaws of its own that you have discussed here that I agree with, but Roma is reaching for the highest plateau, falling a little short, but just the effort is so grand to watch. Visually spectacular, cinematography extraordinary, music marvelous, performances excellent, black and white. Everything I think works for Roma, except maybe some weakness with the script, which is kind of important. The storyline, which is a bit discombobulated if you've seen it. And then there's the thing about Roma that's, you wonder how many people have seen this because of it wasn't released or broadly released in theaters. It has the Netflix connection there. That could hurt it because, again, go on the street and ask somebody about Roma. They think it's somewhere in Italy. They have no idea what this film is. I don't know if that hurts it or not. One more thing, then I'll throw it to you. I do have a feeling that there's a dark horse here because of what I call the Graham King factor. A lot of people are voting based on Hollywood insiders and producers and who have done it before. Graham King, I think he's won this category 6 or 7 times as a producer. He's got Bohemian Rhapsody in this race. He's kind of the Bob Raffont, what is the silver-haired guy with the horses?
Yeah, but it's not his project. The guy that I don't remember all the details, but the guy that's getting credit for the director, he got kicked off the project for, we don't need to talk about it, but that's going to hurt the possibility.
Oh, you think it'll hurt it? I was thinking that the challenge might help it. Actually.
No, Malek's able to survive this, but I think there's an optics problem.
Interesting. So, the politics behind the scenes of this. All right, your pick. Who should win?
No, what's your pick?
Oh, I think Roma probably.
That's your favorite, and it will win.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. I again, it's a weak. It is a weak. We agree, it's a weak field, and there were problems with Roma, but I think that just the creative vision and I love the director. I have to go with that.
I think it's going to be really interesting in this category. Here, little education on how the Oscar Best Picture voting goes. This is the only category the voters have to rank all of the movies. Mm-hmm. So I've read some articles where the Netflix thing, and I got to agree with this. I really hate this Netflix being nominated in Best Picture. I had to watch this at home, and I would have loved to have seen it on the big screen because he did a lot of great things with it. But I'm not with this. I don't think Netflix movies should be eligible. I think you should have and AMC and Regal and these other companies refused to put them out, even though they're showing all the other Oscar movies. And I agree with them. Screw them. So that's a big negative. Mm-hmm. And when you have to rank all the movies, and if you hate Netflix and you don't like Roma, where are you putting Roma? 8. So they total this up on how many number 1s, how many number 2s, how many number 3s, how many number 4s you get. So, and that's how you get your totals. So if people are really pissed at Roma and there's a bunch of people giving it 8s, just because they want to say screw you to Netflix.
Excuse me for a second, because I have to interrupt you. Do you think that people are, it's a softball probably, are they that petty? You can't penalize the film, the creative vision, the director, the actors in that film for the politics behind the scenes of a business model.
Well, Netflix is trying to buy their way into this. They're filling theaters with screeners with 3 people, 7 people. They're spending an absolute fortune on marketing on this. They want to do everything differently. They're not conforming, and it's not unreasonable that people are resistant to change, and they're kind of bullying their way into this marketplace. So I can see why people would be resentful of this. But to get to the movie, this director really infuriated me because it was everything from I really loved a lot about Roma and was really pissed about it because the guy just tried too hard. I mean, how many times do you have he's got the perfect angle for everything, and everything has to look like a picture. And it's just over the top. How many times do you see an airplane just go by in the background with perfect framing? It was just ridiculous. If you had the director from Cold War and and this guy, you'd have the perfect movie. And the other odd thing I wanted to say about Cold War, I noticed the director never had anybody center screen.
Yeah.
Always had it framed left or right. So kind of odd things, but I don't know what's going to happen. I think Roma's going to win it. I'm seeing too many people are behind the movie regardless of this Netflix conflict, but something could sneak in there. Green Book has these political issues that are, the family's not happy about how the guy was portrayed. And when you really look at it, it's a damn good movie. Green Book's a damn good movie.
Well, out of the 8, though, what is the movie that you think should win? Not the best picture that you enjoyed for the year.
If Green Book gets any higher, I'll be betting on Green Book.
Okay.
I'm not betting Roma. There's a 0% chance I'm laying 3 or 5 to 1 on Roma. 0. Right. I'll be looking at Green Book, and I don't think any other. It would be a miracle. It just has to be that stupid ranking system that would put another movie in there.
Yeah. Interesting. Well, very good. Very good analysis. Let's go on to a couple of things here. The biggest oversight of the Oscars this year. We're going to talk about sure things here in just a minute too. But the oversights, the categories, the actors, actresses, movies that should have been nominated that were not. I'll give you mine very, very quickly. Ethan Hawke, what a fabulous actor. Don't tell me this is on your list too. Ethan Hawke, we didn't talk beforehand, by the way, so we have no idea what the other's going to say. But Ethan Hawke in First Reform plays a priest. Just a great performance, a very underrated film, disturbing film. This is not a movie that's going to be, on your warm list.
I have First Reform.
Oh, you already have
there.
that one there, really? I didn't see your notes in advance. And the other, which I think I didn't steal this from you. I didn't see the notes, but how the Mr. Rogers film, Won't You Be My Neighbor, was not nominated in Best Documentary is an absolute crime, C-R-I-M-E, crime that film was not nominated. One of the best documentaries I've seen in the last 10 years.
I am absolutely humiliated and ashamed that I have not seen First Reformed. I traveled out of the country for a couple of months, and it came out when I was gone, and I was told by somebody that it's just gold. And
you're forgiven. You only saw 113 movies last year. You're forgiven.
And then talking about Ethan Hawke, he's in Maudie. My favorite movie from last year. Does an excellent job. And how do you like this? Here's an odd thing about Ethan Hawke. As brilliant as this guy is, I'll bet you can't name 4 movies he's been in. And he's been in over 55.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Think about it. Good luck.
Yeah.
I'll take that bet against anybody.
Yeah.
This guy does such an excellent job, and he does all these, interesting projects, and how can somebody be in 50-plus movies? Everybody knows his name, but nobody can name his movies. Mm-hmm. You can name maybe 2 or 3.
Well, he played
the Training Day movie.
Training
that's
Day
a given.
is the one that everyone remembers,
right.
Sure. And with the Philip Seymour Hoffman film where he plays the brother, where they rob the jewelry store, if you recall that. Anyway, we'll go on into that. Let's go on to best. Go ahead.
Neighbor. By far. How the hell does a movie with a 98% approval rating on Rotten Tomatoes and an 85% approval rating on Metascore not get nominated for Best Documentary. It is absolutely a crying shame. I don't know whether it's the politics of his views toward certain things in life, but that was an excellent, excellent movie. I came out of that movie sitting there saying, "Oh, well, that's a lock for a nomination. Probably will win." But that's the biggest omission. They could have nominated. Did you see the movie Leave No Trace?
No.
Female director, really good movie. Granick. They had a good chance to nominate a woman here, and they bypassed that. And then even in Best Documentary, you've got the They Shall Not Grow Old.
Yeah,
didn't
right.
make it, and Three Identical Strangers.
Right.
If Three Identical Strangers is going to be
Ginsburg movie, RBG.
well,
right.
the Three Identical Strangers and the Ginsburg movie are both like TV movies.
No, well, they've
so if you're going to nominate one of
CNN has
them,
bought them,
if you're going to
right,
sit there and discount Three Identical Strangers because it's a TV movie,
Right.
well, then why does the Ginsburg movie?
Well, I
make
wonder. By the way, real quick point about that. By the way, I've seen these films. Are you conflicting a little bit? What a great story versus what a great movie. Do you understand my point there? It's an amazing story what happened to these three identical twins.
Oh,
doesn't
no,
mean, doesn't mean it's a great movie, though.
No, there was a not things wrong with that documentary.
I'm not saying it was a bad one. It's just
no, it's definitely worthwhile. And I don't have a big problem with it being not nominated, but just thought it would be. But Neighbor, that's a no-brainer.
I'm gonna put
and it should have won.
I'll put that on my list. I've not seen it. I just have to say one thing about Mr. Rogers, though. How do you put Mr. Rogers on the screen for 2 hours and, by the way, 15 years after he died, and captivate a room full of children and adults 15 years after his death, a show that essentially aired in the 1960s. Try to make a documentary on this topic and make it timely as it was.
And
that's
you
an
want
astounding
more.
achievement.
And you want more. Oh, it's over.
Right.
And it was just
Right.
it was very good.
Right. So let's go on to the lock of the year and the Oscar. And there's a lot of very heavy favorites. My lock is just, I don't see how Shallow, the Lady Gaga, Bradley Cooper collaboration on the best song. I don't think if you want to take your house and make $20, essentially put your house up and win $20, it's that big a favorite. This is the lock of the century, I think, for this year.
That is, the highest Oscar bet that I ever placed was on Monique to win Best Supporting Actress, and I laid 25-1 because I knew. You know what? Actually, I put chump change on DiCaprio at 30-1 also because you just get a feel on what's going to be an absolute. Of course, Gaga is going to win that, but since you gave that one, the other lock I'll give is Spider-Man for Best Animated. That's
right.
good. That's going to win.
That's good. All right. Now let's talk about some of the, I think you have underrated and overrated before we get to the Razzies, and then we'll wrap this thing up. Most overrated film of the year. Overrated can mean a lot of different things, and we'll get to underrated in a minute. Let's do overrated first. What say you, Chris?
No, I want to hear your list.
All right, mine. Overrated films, anything with a monster, a spaceship, a superhero, animation, where you're not relying on the humanity and the creative dialogue of life. I'm so tired of, and by the way, if you go down my list of what I call, these are horror movies to me, even though they're not about to scare you, but Aquaman, Mission Impossible, that wasn't actually such a bad film.
You went to Aquaman?
I didn't. Here's what I did: I bought a ticket for something else, walked out because I was so mad. I'll tell you about that. And I blew 30 minutes in this other film and walked out of that too. I walk out of 2 movies in a day. Anyway, Ocean's 8. Gosh, can we please retire this franchise? I mean, they're still doing the Sinatra, Sammy Davis Jr. movie from 1961. This is like the 18th remake. Star Wars. Oh my gosh, we discussed that already. And I mean, all these things that they're remaking over and over and over. Another Rocky movie, the Creed 2. I mean, please, how about some originality? It was actually better than I expected as well. But I'm just tired of the same regurgitated rinse and repeat. Please come up with some original ideas, people.
Give me some crap movies that are rated.
We're going to talk about that in a moment.
You want me to give you the bad movies?
Why don't you tell me your most overrated films, unless you're trying to buy time here on the air?
Well, no, you did. You did the movies you hated.
Yeah, no, I ain't got to those yet. I haven't talked about the ones I walked out of.
My overrated movies, I'm going to guess that at least one of them are on your like movies. My number one overrated movie is Vice.
Wow.
I cannot believe that this movie got the attention that
Andrew,
it has.
turn off his microphone. I don't know how he got this deep in the show. I thought you screened these people. Why didn't you like Vice?
Out of the 8 movies, which movie did the least amount of money?
Yeah, probably. I think
39 million.
Yeah,
it's the lowest amount, and you heard the most about it. You see Vice everywhere. There was lots of good things about that movie. Don't get me wrong. Bale is brilliant, but they over exaggerated so many characters. They
Agreed.
made and that's going to be the problem with the next movie that I hated is when you treat your viewer like they're an idiot and that you have to over exaggerate or over explain or lead them obviously to where you want to take them. They've lost me. And that's what they did. They made the people that they wanted to look like idiots look like complete and utter imbeciles, and they aren't that way. So how are we supposed to take that movie? You know, it's just completely unfair to us. Black Klansman, same thing.
Yeah.
They over-exaggerated the characters, and they made the people that you're not supposed to like look even dumber and more moronic than they really are, and it just takes the authenticity away.
But doesn't Quentin Tarantino and a lot of other directors do exactly this?
Well, it depends. I mean, just commenting on those, it just painfully annoying is when they just make these people look like morons. Just tell the frickin' story the way it is. Come on. Here's a surprising one. I think The Favorite is very overrated. Nominated for Best Picture. Excellent actresses. Brilliant dialogue, but why? Why did I need to see that story?
Yeah, we're not British and we're not female. Maybe that's.
But I loved I don't understand how I can love this. There's great dialogue. I love the actresses. The costumes are excellent. It's a first-rate production movie. But you walk out of there and go, I didn't need to see that. Why? How can this have a 90% approval? Why is this nominated?
Well, if you
for
went and
best
saw it, I'm sure you're going to like it. It's kind of like these Merchant Ivory type films, where the only people that are going to go see those movies. Which, by the way, I like classic. I like riding on horses and princes and all. I like those kind of films, and my wife enjoys them. So maybe I'm influenced in that way. But in other words, you're not going to have the people that love the car crash movies to go see this. So that's why these films get such a high rating.
My last one that I didn't like as much as other people was The Mule. I'm not saying it's a bad movie. I would still say go see The Mule. But, boy, that was flat.
Yeah.
So
right.
when I'm just saying,
we disagree.
I just don't think it was
Clint Eastwood
excellent.
film based on a true story. We disagree on that one. Let's get to. We got to wrap this up. Underrated films. You're on a roll here. Go ahead.
All right. It's on the Razzie list, believe it or not. This isn't my number one.
This is underrated.
Yeah, underrated. It's on the Razzie list for worst movie and many categories. I had no problem with Gotti. I don't understand why everybody hates that movie.
John Travolta playing John Gotti.
I'm telling you, I went with 3 other people, and everybody liked the movie. But we weren't even going to go because they said it was.
Were your children 6, 7, 8 years old?
I'm telling you, this is being force fed. That movie is not. I'm not saying it's a great movie. It is not an awful movie. That's only my point. Okay,
I visited my mother, and she pulled that movie out for us to watch together. I'm not making this up. I did see that as well, and it wasn't nearly as bad as I thought.
Yes. Quickly, though, there is a movie called Widows that is really. This is a type of movie where it's an action crime movie, and it's got Liam Neeson and a bunch of other people in it, and you just sit there and go, oh, it's going to be one of these formula movies. It's something to do if there's not a lot of movies out that week. That movie's damn good.
It is damn
good. It is.
I agree.
For the genre, it is an A for that genre by far.
I think it's one of the 10 best movies of the year.
Here's Mile 22. I just saw this on Metascore. It's got a 38 rating. Mile 22, Mark Wahlberg. It's a really sharp movie. and I really recommend it. It really is a sharp movie. Another movie, Simple Favor, with Blake Lively and I forget the other. That's pretty good. Pretty good. Then that's it.
Well, you all right now? Thou shalt grow old. This is the Peter Jackson movie. Andrew and I were discussing this. Andrew, our producer here. This is Peter Jackson. Talk about a project that just is astounding, to take all this old World War I footage and essentially colorize it, but not just colorize it, but bring these people who gave the best years of their lives, and in many cases gave their lives for a very pointless, awful, terrible war in a terrible time. And to bring this story where I think 25 million people died, that doesn't sound like a movie you'd want to go see. Go see Peter Jackson's masterpiece of a documentary. Doesn't matter if you like history, doesn't matter if you know anything about World War I. What an astounding cinematic achievement.
I hate war movies. I don't want war documentaries. Want nothing to do with it. It's a must-see. I agree.
Very good. All right, so now our last category is Razzies. These are the films that you hated. I'm going to give you I'm just going to roll down if I can find
don't we have our list of our favorite best and worst movies?
No, we don't have time. We're going to have to go to the Razzies and then wrap this thing up. Chris, go ahead. Give us your top 3 of the year.
My top 3 movies for the year: Green Book,
okay,
Bohemian, and it might just be Black Panther. But just quickly, I like Beale Street. Here's a movie we haven't talked about.
Yeah, how did we miss this? Right.
And then here's another one. Christopher Robin. Love that movie.
Okay. Christopher Robin. Wow. Is that animated?
No. Well, it's sort of, but.
All right, so let's go on to the Razzies. These are the films that we absolutely hated. I'm going to give you this is the absolute truth now. These are the films I bought a ticket to. I actually paid money out of my own pocket, laid it on the counter. I said, give me a ticket. My wife went with me as well. And by the way, I never have said to my wife, honey, I know you're enjoying this movie, but I can't stand it. Let's go. She hated the movie too. I would look over her, after about 30, 35 minutes, you say, are you getting this? And she's like, no, let's scram. And we scram and we basically try to go see another movie. So that's the way you go see another 25, 30 minutes of a different film. And that way you can see 200 movies a year for $4 a pop.
I can't wait.
I
want to hear.
All right, so here's my 5 I stormed out of. I don't know the number. 8th grade, I hated that movie. All the critics loved it. I'm the only person in America who apparently didn't like this movie. It's about a teenage girl. It's growing up and, one of these whatever. I just don't get it. I stormed out. The Front Runner, a horrible, horrible film. I have a political science degree. I remember Gary Hart, the incident in 1988 presidential race with Donna Rice. I remember the whole story. I said, this Frontrunner should be fantastic. I bored off my ass after 20 minutes and we left. Mary Poppins Returns. I love Mary Poppins, the original with there's Julie Andrews and Dick Van Dyke. The original in '65 is fantastic. This remake is an absolute bore. I walked out after about 45 minutes. My wife said, I wish you would have tapped me on the shoulder earlier. Mamma Mia. God, do we need another Mamma Mia
film? You deserve to be punished for going to that.
No, wait a minute. I walked out, when I saw this first one, I walked out of the second one. The Old Man and the Gun. This was Robert Redford's swan song, the last film of his career before he retires. I was expecting, this is Robert Redford after doing 100 and something movies. He's going to go out with a bang. The Old Man with the Gun came out with a blank. It was a terrible film. Absolutely horrifically bad. Holmes and Watson. I knew this was bad going on. I said, can it really be that bad? It was worse.
No, you deserve it.
It was worse. And I think that's my 5 or 6 movies I actually wasted money on this year.
My number 1 was Sorry to Bother You. And Sorry to Bother You had probably one of the best first 20 or 30 minutes in a movie I'd seen in a long time. I was really excited. And then somehow it just completely turned on a dime and became complete and utter dung. I cannot believe how something can be so good and then turn to such crap. Ocean's 8, like you mentioned. Are you kidding me? How do you get those people to do that crap? Peppermint was absolutely awful.
Right.
And Jennifer Garner's nominated for a Razzie.
Oh.
Happy Time Murders with the puppets, the vulgar puppets.
Yeah.
Ugh. And then Frontrunner, of course. So Frontrunner makes it
good,
on
we
both.
agree.
Yeah, that was.
Well, this has been fun, Chris. Let's a quick commercial before we go to and say our goodbyes and give our how you can contact us. First of all, Andrew Gieber does some great work here in Las Vegas as a independent film producer and director. Andrew Gieber, contact us if you can't find Andrew Gieber online. He's the master Wizard of Oz here that keeps us looking so pretty good, I think, or sounding good, certainly here in the studio. So thank you to Andrew for doing all this. I also want to give a shout out to, please, if you live here in Las Vegas, and I'm assuming this, what I'm about to tell you actually is an option around the country. If you go to theaters, I believe it's the AMC chain. Here in Las Vegas, it's the Coast properties, like the Orleans, the Suncoast.
That's Cinemark.
Cinemark, excuse me. I beg your pardon. I misspoke. It is Cinemark. Excuse me. I said AMC. I meant Cinemark. So if you go to any of the Cinemark theaters around, hopefully around the country, they do only like 2 nights out of the year. They will do this usually in March after the Oscars, and they'll have one special night where it's about 3 hours of nothing but the short films and the animated films. My wife and I have done this 5 straight years. It's usually on like a Wednesday night. And you'll sit there in the theater for 3 hours. And you know, whenever they have the Oscars coming up and they'll say, best short film, it's like 6-7 minutes usually, something like that. And no one's ever heard or seen these movies. What a tragedy. I'm going to tell you something. I've seen astoundingly great films, including animation, which I'm not a fan of, in these 3-hour sittings. Try to go to Cinemark. Ask them when they do the shorts animation. It's together. It's the same night. And please do yourself a favor and give these movies some love, some support. They need it. And boy, those are tomorrow's stars in many cases making these short films today.
I agree with you. A great time.
All right. So you can reach me. I'm Nolan Dalla, NolanDalla.com. That's my website. I write about politics and sports and all kinds of stuff, restaurant reviews, and certainly movies. I absolutely love movies. This has been a great experience for me. Chris, you're a great friend, and I've enjoyed sitting with you and arguing with you. We may do this show if people enjoyed this format. Maybe we'll do something like this maybe monthly or in the future. This was our pilot show. So if you'd like to give us some feedback, good or bad, what you liked, what you didn't like, maybe some suggestions, please try to reach out to me at NolanDalla.com. You can also follow me on Twitter at NolanDalla. That's NolanDalla. Las Vegas Chris, you can reach him as well at
Las Vegas Chris.
That's real simple. Yeah. Las Vegas Chris.
Without
By the way,
H.
it's C-R-I-S, not with an H. C-R-I-S. Las Vegas Chris. Please follow Chris. Not just great stuff on movies, but especially a lot of stuff on gambling and sports and other topics too. Andrew Gieber, the Wizard of Oz there over in the command center. Thank you very much. This has been our debut show, our pilot show. I think it went very, very well. We are the Couch Potato Critics. We'll see you again next time. Thanks so much.